Today, I am joined by Charles Marino to go through some of the biggest stories in the news. Chuck, thank you so much for joining me again.
Always good to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give my audience some background. Chuck is a national security expert. He does private security. He's a writer, author. You've probably seen him on the big news channels. As time passes, I've noticed that the truth eventually works its way to the surface. I read today that 59% of Democrats now believe the January 6th Capitol breach was likely led by the government. I was shocked to see it be that high. I know that MAGA believes that's the case as more information came out about the FBI. But now even Democrats are saying, yeah, something doesn't smell right. The government was likely involved. What are your thoughts on that?
So I've looked at this when the incident took place from a different perspective. And that was, what were the domestic conditions and the intelligence telling us about the political environment, right? You had the certification of the election, very contentious, taking place on January 6th. And yet, knowing the domestic environment that we were operating in, security was not top of mind for the Capitol that day. And let's keep in mind who security reports up to in Congress: the Speaker of the House, who at the time was Nancy Pelosi. Now, what could have been done was, like the inauguration, like the State of the Union, the certification of the election based on the conditions domestically could have been requested to become a national special security event. That would have put the Secret Service in charge of the planning and the coordination. It would have pulled in all the entities that you're hearing being argued about right now, including the National Guard, which was a big point of contention, right? At that day, and yet none of that was done. And the other interesting thing is the sergeant at arms for the Senate and the sergeant at arms for the House were both retired Secret Service agents. So they knew what was available to them, very likely made the recommendations to the speaker, and those recommendations were ignored. And I think that's why we heard in that piece of video of Nancy Pelosi in the car saying this was her fault. She knew she owned it. And I don't believe that that was investigated enough, because I think Democrats in Congress shut it down.
Yeah, I just, I'm on the MAGA side. I'm on the Republican side. So at first I was horrified by it. And then as I started interviewing and digging in, I'm like, okay, something doesn't smell right. Then we start finding out there's undercover people. There's been all these groups infiltrated. Then I find out Trump wasn't even in charge of this. He was literally the keynote speaker. Then I see that a lot of the stuff started before he even finished his speech. Now Democrats have come around to saying, wait a minute, almost 60% of us think that's 6 out of 10 people. 6 out of 10 Democrats say, yeah, it was probably the government. I'm shocked.
And I think, right. And so what I was talking about, I think that was the start. That was intentionally done. And I think Democrats wanted to see this happen. And so it was not only encouraged by the lack of necessary security to match the threat level at the time, but then it was facilitated.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to go deep. A lot of this is very troubling. And so now you see, by the way, that the certification of the elections are now designated national special security events. So how about that?
Yeah.
So it's reasonable to expect that there's proper security that day, just like there is for the other large events taking place at the Capitol, but not that day, not at that time.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, something else that the Democrats are pushing hard on. Senator Chuck Schumer said, if Republicans are able to make an ID a requirement for voting, blacks and poor people won't be able to vote. Let me bring this up.
It's been clear. When we fight for democracy, when we protect democracy, we got to fight fire with fire. We're not going to stand idly by, as Maya said. We're not going to let them revert to Jim Crow. And if you don't think they want to revert to Jim Crow, just look what they did in the SAVE Act, which went back to took Jim Crow for the whole nation. By so making it hard, they said you need ID, and they made it so hard to show ID that probably half the people in America couldn't vote. We wouldn't let it pass. Democrats, they needed our vote. They went to court. Many of us, Durbin, myself, and others were lead plaintiffs, and we beat them in court. But it shows why we need legislation, because these guys are undoing everything in every way they can. They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote. They don't want Democrats to vote. They don't believe in democracy. We do.
All right.
Yeah.
This, to me, I'm just like reading through the lines where this guy has zero confidence in his own voters. Like, okay, if you have any melanin in your skin, you're probably too stupid or too poor to be able to vote. And that's exactly what they want. Meanwhile, like all of the people of color, white people, black people, like everybody goes and gets an ID. How do you have a bank account? How do you do anything? Like you couldn't even get into the DNC convention without showing your ID. Your thoughts on him belittling his own voters so much?
Yeah, he's got zero situational awareness, and this is why the Democrats are losing the African American vote. And I got to tell you right now, African Americans should be outraged being spoken about like that, as if they're incapable of getting a state issued ID, aligning them with the poor population in the United States, which we know is not 100% accurate. That it's a diverse range of races that are impacted by poverty. And so, remember that one slip up Biden had one time when he was talking about uneducated people, and then he slipped up and immediately referred to the black population.
Yeah.
It's sometimes they say the quiet part out loud, and then they catch themselves. But Schumer look, the guy should have been gone a long time ago. New Yorkers, they get what they vote for, and he's just the gift that keeps on giving. But the fact that you've got a white male talking about African Americans in that manner, as if that weren't bad enough, you also have African American politicians that are also exploiting the same group in the United States for the same purposes. So, look, there's a lot of anger here. I'm sure there's a lot of disgust in the African American community that they're spoken to in this regard. And so it's a losing issue for Democrats, just like almost every other issue they're involved in.
Yeah. I could tell you, I have no idea what it's like to be a black person, but I can tell you if Donald Trump said to me, hey, you white person, you're too dumb or too poor to know how to vote, I would be outraged. I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, what are you saying to me as your voter? Like, it makes no sense. Like, why would you insult your voter? It's like they insult the voter and then the voter goes, yeah, you're right. The other group is bad. But why wouldn't they go, wait a minute. You just told me I'm low IQ, incapable, have no skills, no drive, no money. Like, why are you boxing me into a corner? Or is that on purpose? They want them relegated to the corner so that they can control them.
Well, it's just another angle of attack for Democrats to divide the country. That's all it is. It's another means for them to attempt to separate and segregate this country, and have the country just implode on itself. That's what Democrats really want here. And so they're going to continue with this narrative, even though it costs them elections. And the fact that Republicans can just look at this issue a voter ID, and it being impossible for the African American community in this country, Republicans are like, look, this couldn't be further from the truth. And African Americans overwhelmingly say, you're exactly right. I drive a car every day. I've got a state issued ID. Oh, and by the way, I work every single day. What do you think of that, Democrats? I own a home, right? It's just the fact that in this day and age, they are continuing with this prehistoric way of thinking shows you exactly where the Democratic Party is. And let's face it, they're leaderless right now. And so you've got them going in a million different directions, and every direction they go doesn't help the country.
Yeah. I do find it interesting, though, that Donald Trump, the guy who said, I actually think Black people, people of color, Hispanics, Latinos, Asians, I believe you guys are all smart enough to have IDs and to do your duty as a citizen and vote. And what happened? More of them voted for him. I mean, so like the ones, I guess, that were smart enough to figure out how to get an ID, they were also smart enough to say, I'm going to vote for Donald J. Trump and not for Kamala Harris.
Well, you know what else they're smart enough to determine? Just like we saw overwhelmingly across the entirety of the United States, they're going to pick the person that they think can solve the problems for them and help them live a better life. That's it. That's all it is. Can I keep more money in my pocket? And are me and my family going to be safe? Are you going to do the right things when it comes to upholding law and order? Look, including the African American community, they didn't support defunding the police. They don't support open borders. They don't support any of this. Do you think anybody supports what's going on in major cities across the United States right now regarding the sanctuary status and all the elevated risks of illegal migrants being protected, who then are going on and committing more crimes and being released back out on the street? This impacts not only whites, it impacts Blacks, it impacts Hispanics, it impacts the illegal migrant community, people that are exploited, that are trafficked. It's just none of these democratic policies, to my point earlier, are doing anything to move this country forward to ensure that people can live a better, safer life at all.
Yeah, that's a great summary. Will my life be better under X or under Y? I mean, for most people, it's
all it
really
comes down to.
Yeah,
it's all it comes down to, Stephen. It's all I care about is somebody going to put the United States first and American citizens first.
Yeah,
that's it.
Let me switch gears with you. This is right up your alley, being in security, but Tom Homan said something really incredible. Let me roll it.
If you will, in terms of legislation, has that money allocated to hire more ICE, more ICE agents, federal agents. I wanted to ask you about that. Can you talk about the incentives to recruit more federal agents to be used by ICE? What is out there for them to maybe consider coming out of retirement or consider this as a career path?
Well, I can tell you this, John. We had thousands of people contacted me. I mean, literally thousands. I had a LinkedIn account, I had to shut it down. So thousands of agents who already wanted to come back from the Border Patrol and from ICE without a signing bonus. But now there's a signing bonus announced, $10,000 signing bonus. The numbers are extraordinary. I was talking to the CBP commission this week. The record, they got more recruits coming in from Border Patrol than any time in history. Their recruiting office is swamped. They got more people than they can handle. ICE, I know they got hundreds and hundreds of people already signed up to come back. And it's a great move. Bring back ICE agents who know the Fourth Amendment. They know how to speak Spanish. They know how to use the processing systems. They know the way we operate on fugitive operations. So they can hit the ground from day one after a few weeks of refresher training. So it's a great move. And also there's a $10,000 retention bonus for those who are eligible to retire. We lift the retirement age to keep that knowledge, that experience, in the workforce. So there's also $10,000 signing bonus, which I think is a great move.
Okay, so guy has to shut down his LinkedIn account. He's got thousands of people saying, I love America. We have a president that wants to protect the border and he's overwhelmed. The Border Patrol, they're overwhelmed. Like, what are your thoughts on that? This has been such a turnaround from the Biden era. As we age, the signs start showing more aches and pains, thinning hair, wrinkles, and brittle nails. It's frustrating, but we don't have to accept it. Let me tell you about Revive by Brightcore Nutrition, a powerful supplement designed to restore what time is taking away. Revive helps strengthen your joints and bones so you can move easier and feel better. But it doesn't stop there. It also works from the inside out to rejuvenate your skin, thicken your hair, and strengthen brittle nails. It contains 5 types of collagen, plus hyaluronic acid, biotin, and vitamin C, a powerful combination that helps you look and feel younger than you have in years. It's easy to use, just a scoop of it into water or coffee or hot chocolate. It dissolves fast with no weird taste. And the result, they're real. Now, I love the strawberry lemonade flavor. If you want to reduce aches, restore your glow, and feel confident again, give Revive a try today. I've got a special offer for you. Do the code Gardner at the link below or use the QR code and get 25% off. Or go get a better deal. Make a quick phone call to 888-908-4425. They're professional. They speak English. They're right here in the United States. They will take care of you, and you get up to 50% off and free shipping. So go take care of your health and get that discount. Go check it out right now.
Well, it's a great idea. I think more agencies, quite candidly, should be doing this, including my old agency in the Secret Service. I think it's an innovative way to get experienced people back that are still capable of doing the job. But there's a number of things going on here that we're seeing all at once. One, you've got to deal with the people that you have right now. And we know that under the Biden administration, the morale for CBP and ICE was down the tubes, right? They were prevented from enforcing the laws of the country. They were switched to processing as many illegal migrants into the country without vetting. They were basically being forced to turn their nose up at the oath of office that they took. And that was to protect this country. That has switched. Right now, they're able to go do the jobs they want. They've got plenty of help coming from the military on the border. And this administration, rightfully so, wants them to secure the border, lock it down, and identify those in the country in a prioritized manner that are committing additional crimes, represent national security threats, and are in this country illegally, and get them out. So morale's through the roof. That's great. So that solves the retention issue. Right now, it's all of these additional bodies in combination to continuing the traditional hiring of younger agents and CBP officers. So you've got to hit this from both sides, and that's what you're seeing ICE and CBP do now. Right, bring back the experienced agents, keep hiring those younger ones. Now you've got mentors and mentees. And I'll tell you, I think it's a great idea, and it's going to work. And I think the incentives, to be honest with you, these new hiring and retention bonuses. I was asked about this question by Representative Moskowitz when I was testifying last before Congress, and he asked me if I thought it was needed, and I said yes. Look, we've got generational shifts going on here, right? You've got younger populations that are exploring more of a micro career approach, and that just doesn't work in the federal government. Taxpayers are investing so much in getting these men and women trained up to do the job that they're going to do for a federal agency. You don't want to lose them after 5 years. So I think these retention bonuses, these hiring bonuses, I think they're needed in this day and age, and it's going to work.
Yeah, I agree. When I first saw that from Trump, I was like, "Oh, yes, finally." How do you move a mouse, right? You put the proper cheese in front of them, and this is what we need. But look at the military as well, Chuck. They just hit their recruitment numbers 6 months early. To me, this just shows a swelling of national pride, proud to be an American. Oh, wait a minute, I don't want to fight overseas and die for some other country. I want to make sure America is safe, that we're not overrun, that we're not being, ground into the dirt, that we're not being replaced. So you see this with Border Patrol, you see this with ICE, you even see it with the U.S. military.
Well, and the truth is, more people than not respect a little thing called standards. And I think that's something that was underestimated by Democrats. And they see that they're not winning on that front either when they call the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, before Congress. They talk about standards and removing DEI hiring and all of that as a bad thing. No, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing for anybody that takes pride in what they're doing. And let's remember that lives depend on many of these jobs, right? I want to know that the man or the woman next to me is going to be capable to help me out in the event that I need help. And so standards in these jobs are very, very important. And we want the right people in the right positions. And so the fact that all this other BS is being removed by the administration that takes place in these giant bureaucracies is aiding in that recruitment drive, right? It's not, do as I say as I do. It's look, you've got to be able to walk the walk, and what you say, people have to be able to take stock in, and they have to know that when you say there's going to be standards, that there's going to be standards. And guess what? Some people are going to be weeded out, and that's not a bad thing. Those people will all find other careers that are more well suited for them, and that's okay.
Yeah. You mentioned a few minutes ago, Chuck, that every now and then somebody says the quiet part out loud. Democrats have been saying, illegals aren't voting. We don't need the illegals. There's no replacement theory. They're just doing jobs that Americans don't want. What we're finding over and over again is that those are lies. But we have a Democrat representative, Yvette Clarke, up in New York. She says the quiet part out loud, that she can't win unless she has more illegals put into her area. Let me go ahead and show this video to you.
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of these migrants. And when I hear colleagues talk about, the doors of the inn being closed, no room in the inn, I'm saying, I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes. And those members could clearly fit here.
So I need those people in my district, right? Like, oh, my constituents, they can absorb all of this, the high cost, the abuse of taxpayer money, the crime that comes with it. I'm not saying every illegal is a crime committer, right? But we now know that there's a lot of criminals that Trump and Tom Homan are finding. Your thoughts on her saying, I don't know if I can win my election if I don't have more illegals?
Well, I've got to tell you, and my book there behind me, I predicted very, very early on in the Biden administration that they were allowing this to happen down at the border, in part to change the demographics of the country and ultimately get illegal aliens the right to vote. And then they slowly started to show their hand. Right. They would slide in, under the radar votes for the District of Columbia, for example, if you recall, who wanted to give illegals the right to vote. That thankfully got shot down by Republicans. And then you start to hear more and more Democrats leak out, like good old Yvette there, who slips up and talks about it out loud. So this is really, in my opinion, been the worst kept secret by Democrats in recent history. And it's a shame, because if you look from a national security standpoint, as I did, at what this has done to the United States and the people that have been allowed to come in, to your point, it's not all of them, but it doesn't need to be all of them. Just a significant amount can wreak havoc. And remember, they're coming from China, our number one adversary, right? 3,000% increase. of Chinese nationals, predominantly middle-aged males. What's going on there? You've got special interest locations from places that we know terrorist organizations are still up and running. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas, they're making their way into the country. So we've got a big problem right now. And that's why Tom Homan's job and the men and women of ICE and CBP is so important to identify now all of these different threats that have been allowed into the United States. And the majority of them are being housed in sanctuary states where they have unlimited protections, where state and local law enforcement are prevented from working with federal officials like ICE to identify these threats and remove them for deportation. We just saw this play out in New York City with the attempted robbery and shooting of the off-duty CBP officer in Central Park. And so, this is the story tells itself about how bad the policies are, but it also enhances the importance of getting President Trump back in office for this term to right this wrong of the Biden administration. We've discussed this before. The anomaly in all of this on the immigration debate has been the Biden administration. If you look between Democrats and Republicans, this has never been a partisan issue from the safety and security standpoint of the American people. Yes, there's been policy debates about immigration reform and is it needed? But at the end of the day, President Obama was enforcing the law just as much, if not more, as George W. Bush. George W. Bush was enforcing it just as much, if not more, than what Bill Clinton was doing. So you see what I'm saying here? This has always played a significant role in our national security. Nobody's ever turned their back on it the way the Biden administration did, ever.
Yeah. Well, and you predicted all of this in your book, Terrorists on the Border and in Our Country. You brought up a really great point. They don't all have to be criminals, just a few of them, right? One of my favorite and stupidest things that I ever heard the mainstream media say was, well, yeah, Tren de Aragua is in Colorado, but they've only taken over one building. Like it was just one building that they took over, right? Like they don't have to take over the whole city. They were literally terrorizing people with assault weapons and took over this entire apartment complex, but it was only one building.
Well, look, I was all for, and I say so in the book, the designation of MS-13, Tren de Aragua, the cartels in Mexico, declaring them as foreign terrorist organizations. It was time. They became so powerful under the Biden administration, operationally, financially, that it was time to change tactics and get way more aggressive. I think there's still room to grow, by the way, and get more aggressive against some of these organizations. But right now, we are seeing the aggressiveness be ratcheted up in terms of what's being brought to challenge the cartels. And the other thing you need tough diplomacy. You need the lead politician for this country, the lead diplomat, the president, to not be afraid to conduct tough diplomacy. And we know that he's not. And we're seeing it with China when it comes to fentanyl. And we're seeing it with Mexico and Canada when it comes to doing their share of responsibility in helping to secure our borders. And so, you need a multifaceted approach. It's a combination of things. If you're going to be just a sole issue president, you're not going to be very successful, especially in these complicated issues like immigration. And surprise, surprise, it can be done. It didn't take immigration reform, right? It didn't take any new laws. It didn't take anything. It just took enforcing the laws that already exist and having the nerve to tell the American people, look, I'm the executive branch. Part of being the leader of the executive branch is enforcing the laws of this country. And that's what I'm going to do. If you like what I'm saying, vote for me. And apparently the American public wanted to see President Trump get back in office, rightfully so.
Yeah. Well, he summed it up best at the State of the Union. We didn't need a new policy. We just needed a new president.
Exactly right.
He's got the moral courage to go in and do the right thing. Final thing I wanted to go over with you, Chuck. It started off by Democrats saying there's no illegals voting in American elections. There's no illegals on Social Security. There's no illegals in the SNAP food benefits program. There's none in Medicare, none in Medicaid. And then it was like, okay, we're going to share their information with ICE and we're going to remove them. Now, 21 Democrat attorney generals are suing President Trump to stop them from sharing illegal immigrant data in all of these different programs that I just mentioned. How did we go from they're not on there to we've got to protect them at all costs? This is the new Democrat Party.
Well, because they've got no moral compass. And when you don't have a moral compass, what's the saying, right? A liar needs a good memory.
Yeah.
This is case in point, right? I mean, look at the role that the non-governmental organizations played in the human trafficking the last 4 years under the Biden administration, and the hundreds of billions of dollars that they received from federal taxpayers to facilitate this trafficking of, and by the way, including 350,000 unaccompanied minors who are still missing within the interior of the United States. ICE is slowly bringing that number down, luckily finding some of these children that are either in forced labor or been pulled into sex trafficking. I mean, the stories are horrendous, and US taxpayers were forced to fund this by the Biden administration unknowingly by giving all these billions to their friends running these non-governmental organizations. So the fact is, Democrats wouldn't know the right thing to do if it smacked them in the face. And that should be readily apparent to the American people right now. And I think it's becoming more and more apparent based on what is unfolding in the United States right now. Look, it's, remember the old commercial, clean up in aisle 15, in the supermarket. Trump's got a huge cleanup operation here based on the mess that the Biden administration left for him, not only in immigration, but I mean, in world diplomacy. Look at the mess they left with respect to Iran, the rightful action that needed to take place there. And so the president's got a lot on his plate. But I got to tell you, I like what I see so far. It's just there's still a lot of work ahead of this administration, and being transparent, they know that. When you hear, Tom Homan talk about not only the impacts to infrastructure, the impacts to taxpayers, but the impacts to the quality of life of the American people based on many of these illegals that were let into the country. He recognizes that there's still a lot of work to do, and it's only going to take a whole of government approach and cooperation to solve this and make a significant dent in it. And hopefully, after this 4 years, it continues with another Republican in office. Because if we get another Democratic president, especially with the list of names that are floating around out there, I mean, Ocasio-Cortez, come on. I mean, she can't even keep her own district straight in New York. So what do you think she's going to do for the country? The country is going to end up looking like her district in New York, and it'll be wide open borders. It'll be taxpayers paying the bounties and the cost of living for all of these illegals. And look, we can't afford it as a country. We've seen this play out in Europe. It's a recipe for disaster. It's still playing out in London with the Muslim population, and it's not good.
Yeah, that's a good. I liked your analogy. Clean up on aisle 15. I mean, Trump. He says he had a mandate to shut down the border, but it was like clean up on inflation, clean up on the border, clean up on the fentanyl, clean up on the rising murders and theft, clean up on the interest rate situation, the
Yeah.
war between Israel and Gaza, the Russia-Ukraine, like on and on and on and on. My gosh, I don't know that any president has been handed more problems.
Tell me one thing that the Trump administration could have possibly walked in and said, boy, the Biden administration did us a big favor on this one. I can't think of one.
I don't know. Even Pete Buttigieg was on TV yesterday saying the country is being ruined by how Trump is spending the money. Then you find out he spent $80 billion on DEI grants versus cleaning up air traffic control, making sure there was a flow of air traffic control agents, updated airplanes, like airport improvements. You spent $80 on what? And then he goes on national television saying that this side of the aisle is spending stupidly.
Yeah, right. Because, to them, it's all about race baiting. It's all about dividing. And it goes back to my point about standards. When you lower standards, not only do all of these agencies ultimately end up suffering in their performance, but you create division within these bureaucracies. You've got people that are looking at others saying, wait a minute, they didn't get here the same way I was forced to have to get here. They weren't forced to adhere to the same standards as me. And so it causes a problem. But this is what Democrats are all about. They just want to cause this division within the country. They want it to be race-based. They want to paint the worst picture for the United States as possible. You hear them still talking to this day that we're not respected around the world. Well, let me ask this rhetorical question. Are we more respected around the world now, or were we more respected 4 years ago? I argue we're more respected now because we've got a man in charge and an administration to follow up behind him that says what he means and means what he says.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I saw people from all these European countries getting to Scotland just so that they could see the president of the United States. I mean, it was crazy to watch all that. Chuck, thank you so much for all that you do for the country and coming on and keeping us in the loop on what's really going on. If people want to follow you online, where can I point them?
They can check me out, charlesmarino.com, or on X, Charles_Marino.
Okay. I'll put that down below, as well as a link to your book. Thanks for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Stephen. You too.